So, hi Saigo. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and welcome to Little Fuzzy Chats. So, to start off, would you please just introduce yourself and how you're involved in the NFT space?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. First time kind of I guess being on video, so it's kind of weird, but I appreciate kind of the opportunity, and it's been awesome to hear about what you're kind of trying to do. So my name's Saigo. That's how you'll see me in on Twitter at Crypto Saigo. You'll see me in Discord, Saigo. I'm involved in two projects mainly right now. In Sovana, a lot of people, if you know who I am, know what Sovana is. It's kind of interoperable 2D metaverse. I handle partnerships and integrations, and I kind of joined them back in November. I'm doing a lot more kind of work for them, and then I'm also involved in Shin Sengoku, which is a new project, hasn't minted yet, and I am helping them kind of build up the community. Our whole team is from Hawaii, or for the most part, is from Hawaii, and so yeah. And then I think, did you ask how long have I been in this space? Was that
Just how you've been involved, but also that'd be great if you could add how long you've been in the space.
Okay, yeah. So I've been involved in crypto since like 2017, off and on. My kind of main work in IRL was mainly in international education, creating study abroad programs, leading workshops, stuff like that. So the kind of education component comes very natural, and kind of the networking. Still learning a lot more about the kind of technical components and whatnot of the space. And then I got into NFTs in particular back in probably September, although I kind of dabbled with Ethereum a little bit on and off prior to that, but really kind of went all in on Solana NFTs, and have kind of made my name, I guess, in that space, if you could even call it a name. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, what do you think makes the NFT collections that you're a part of stand out? Because there are just so many NFT collections that are out there.
Yeah. I mean, usually I'd say obviously like art can be a big component, and we've kind of seen it go from you know art being feeling more like it's an Ethereum, quote unquote meta, and it being only really something that matters over there, and kind of good art not being rewarded in this space as much. Or I think now we're seeing it a lot more like Cats on Crack. They did had their whole kind of like resurgence with a lot of the projects coming out like DGen Dojo or Decimus Dynamics. They're kind of more focused on art, although they do still have that utility aspect. I think they're just leveraging the art a bit more. And I think we're going to start to see that like really high quality art start to be more of a standout, rather than like another pixelated collection. Pixel art can definitely be cool, but it has to, the intricacy of the art and it being kind of having like a wow factor definitely helps. And then beyond that, just like I think a really big thing is the people involved in a project. A lot of people will mention, the founders of a project, or the people who are involved, or even the people who are kind of like OGs in it. They'll look at those people and be like, "Wow, like this is a powerful team," or "These people are like, I've seen them do X, Y, Z. I've heard them speak on the space. I really trust the way they talk. I really trust kind of their experience." And so I think those are kind of two probably components to a project that I think can be pretty powerful and help a project stand out initially. There's a couple other ones that I could probably, if I thought a little bit more about it, I'd probably think about, but those are off the top of my head kind of two main kind of features I look for in a project. And I guess like the technology, if you will, like, so there's like art, and then there's like the idea they have. But I do think the idea, while it can help a project stand out, it can also make it hard to digest. So while sometimes it works in its favor, if it's too ambitious or it's too big, it can almost work against a project, because people don't want to take the time to like learn about it and understand why it could be like such a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think like no matter how cool a project is, like how cool the roadmap is, how cool the art is, it's hard to get people to like learn about it. So how do you essentially like build up your community, like introduce your art or whatever is cool about your project to the first 100, and like how that is versus the first 1,000 followers?
Yeah. So kind of like I was saying before we got on, I've never been involved in a project like as like me as the sole founder. I've kind of been brought in by other founders and connected with other people and kind of helped them sometimes grow from a small community. When I was with Sovana when they were just a couple hundred people on the Discord, and really really not super well known. So I've watched kind of Retromentum and Thug over there, the two founders, kind of grow that community and bring more people in. And then I've also seen Shin Sengoku. That's Ryan's project. Ryan's a good friend now from Hawaii, and it's been kind of his idea and his idea. And I guess we technically grown the Twitter from zero to, I think it's just a little over 1,000 right now. But I think what's most important for those things is like uh, the first thing that's really important is networking. And we kind of spoke the other day about this a little bit, but like building your network and finding people who trust in you and vouch for you is really, really important when you're trying to create a project and create kind of a community. Because people will be interested. You could put out a collection, you can put out artwork, and it's cool, but people in the space want more assurances that the person they're kind of investing in is someone worth investing in. That makes sense. So like, even one-on-one artists, and a lot of one-on-one artists come into the space and they're like, I've got this really dope piece of art. I'm sure it's gonna kill. I saw this other person with like a so piece of art sell for like 30 souls. So like mine should be able to sell for that much. And they come in and then no one wants to buy it because no one's looking at them. No one's scrolling like exchange art just looking for a really cool piece of art that no one's seen before. There are some people now, I think, who are starting to try and find and kind of promote those artists. But building your network for that reason is really, really important because it just gets you more people in your corner, and it gets you kind of access to other communities. So I guess network paired with reputation, and like building out your reputation, those kind of come hand in hand. So building up your credibility, your ability to speak on kind of the space on whatever your trade is. So if you're a really good artist, gaining respect from other artists and getting involved on Twitter Spaces and things like that, getting out there and talking and kind of being visible is like super important. And then beyond that, it's I think having something to grow. So like having an idea and a vision that's tangible. So that's kind of Sovana was kind of the networking reputation. There was a cool idea and there's a cool like ethos and vision, and it was kind of building this commonplace, this social hub for the community. But it had to go through a couple different iterations, and it was kind of brainstormed and workshopped with the community. And over time, we slowly grew from November to December to January, and just kind of built and grew slowly. But for Shin Sengoku, Ryan had a really great idea, and he kind of not perfected it because I don't think he would believe that it's perfect, but he refined it into a place where he was comfortable with it. And once he got comfortable with it, he then said, all right, I've got this really great idea. I've already kind of finished the network and reputation side. People know who I am. People trust me. But now I want to get this idea out there. And then so that's kind of the next step, is having a great idea that people are interested in, and then sharing that idea. And from there, I mean, it was really easy to grow that community because you had reputation. I've somewhat have a decent network, and Ryan's got a really good reputation. And so between all of that and the great idea, it just became pretty easy for us. Easy enough to get numbers. I should say it's easy to get like numbers on the follower, like numbers in the Discord. Beyond that, there's a whole other element of, I think, how we capture the community and the value of the community and how we create that. But that's kind of going from 100 to 1,000. That's kind of how that has been in like both those regards, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you talked about how you get people, like the first 100, first 1,000 people. So how do you get them to sustain interest in your project?
Yeah. I mean, this is something very real to us at Sovana, and it's something we talk about every week. So for Sovana, we have one way we've kind of helped with that is creating kind of infrastructure within our organization, kind of like organizational infrastructure, empowering different tiers or different kind of levels of people in our community. So as we see kind of more people take interest and more people kind of step up and take responsibility, giving them opportunity to help us build. There's a lot of communities where people step up and they say, hey, like, what can I do to help? And founders will just be like, oh, like, actually, I think I've got it taken care of. Like, I've got XYZ, and so I think once we do that, we'll be good. But that's really just a lot of wasted energy because this person has time. They're not necessarily expecting anything in return. Although, if you're a good founder, you should be rewarding the people who step up. And as you kind of expand that base, it goes from like the founder who's got the sole responsibility to create this really powerful network. And like it's really that founder's job. And I think Frank from DGOS would probably talk about this really well. Like you need to capture as much value from your community as you can, and help them kind of almost like return value to themselves through this kind of like vehicle that you've created, that has a ton of opportunity. So whether it be elevating people to like an alpha role, because that's something they do really well, and giving them kind of the authority to be something of a like a person of authority on that topic in your Discord. Or maybe it's you know elevating people to like mod roles, who are really good in your community about helping answer questions. In Sovana, we've created vibe coordinators, which are kind of like mods. So they've gotten a couple extra permissions. They can moderate the chat a little bit more, delete things, and kind of help us out, in terms of kind of patrolling the chat. But they also kind of set the vibes, and we don't have expectations from them as like you have to be around all the time. We've just acknowledged that they're there, and that they we see them as people we respect a lot, and they do a lot for our community. And so that kind of, I think, the wide base you can create of trust lets you get a lot more out of your community than if you're just like trying to manage 100 people on your own, or even just as like 3 people. It's a lot,
Yeah.
to manage. So I'd say that's one way. Although I just talked a bunch and I kind of forgot what the initial question was. So if you feel like I can get more out of me for that, feel free to ask again.
No, I think you answered. It was a very great answer. So now that you've built your community, a sustained interest in the launch, which was the question, how do you determine when it's time to mint your project?
Yeah, so this is something I haven't really had to myself decide. I haven't been kind of in the position that says, hey, like let's mint on this day. But I've been involved in a lot of communities that have asked me for help on that, and that have I've talked to a lot because of my position with Sovana. I've talked to a ton of founders. I've talked to a ton of founders who have minted and kind of have been able to reflect on what that was like. I've talked with a ton of different founders about in the lead up to their mint. Founders that I thought had really great projects, and I think where a lot of them go wrong often is in their mint date. So I think a project that I think has done this really well is Crypto Coral Tribe. They're going to be minting soon. I think they're announcing their mint date in the next couple of days. But when I spoke to them originally, and I asked them about it, they said, we're going to launch when we're ready and when we feel like we can sell out our mint. And that's a really, I think, important thing for founders to think about, because if you go to mint, the problem with like the ecosystem right now is if you go to mint and you don't mint out, it's almost like a fatal mistake. It'll tank a project. Projects make bad decisions in kind of stressful times like that. They'll cut supply super low. If you cut supply really low, you have less community to work with, and you have less ability in the future to bring people in. You have to release new collections. It hamstrings your initial development. I think there's a way to cut supply, and some projects maybe had too much supply to begin with, or maybe they don't need that whole thing, and there's ways to build through that. But I think being cognizant of market sentiment, and making sure that you have a read on kind of what's happening in the market is really important before you go to mint. How when you're ready to start thinking about that is probably whenever what you're building is complete. So if you're building a product, so for Sovana, for example, we had a demo that we put out there, and we waited till we had the demo done, and we waited till we were pretty much about ready with the Sovana MVP. I think we had it ready 2 to 3 weeks after mint, and we had our staking live like right after mint, and we dropped like our mount. So we had a bunch of like deliverables that we knew were going to be done right after mint. And so that was kind of a thought process for us. We actually pushed it back about a month. I think we were originally targeting like early January, and market sentiment wasn't good, and we also didn't have enough to deliver on. And the meta changed from mint and then deliver to deliver and then mint, which is how it should be. And then for Shin Sengoku, I mean, for us, it's we haven't set a mint date. We're targeting early May, but Ryan's Ryan's whole outlook is, once the game is ready and I feel it's ready, then we can go to mint. And once it's ready, that's when we'll look at mint dates and say, okay, the market is like this right now. It's good. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of enthusiasm. We should be able to sell at our mint. Or, we get the game ready and then we're like, ooh, no one wants to mint anything. People are telling us they're excited, but what we're seeing it paints a different picture. So then we'll probably reassess, if we want to go to mint at that time, or if we want to push it a little bit. I just think being kind of, whatever you do, being really open with communication with your community, saying like, hey, the market seems kind of so right now, we're not comfortable minting in the next couple of days. We're going to push it out a week, or reassess, and in the meantime, we're going to keep building out the platform so that when we do mint, you'll have even more kind of to work with. So yeah, I guess ramble through a couple of different scenarios, but I think it's largely, is your project ready? What's the market sentiment like? And then if it's not a utility-based project, I think you need to be really sure about your community and the, I guess, hype that's there. Because if it's community-based and art-based, and you don't have a strong community, I think those can get hit really hard if they don't do well on mint, and they have a really hard time coming back from it.
And so, how do you determine what the market sentiment is?
Yeah, being in like a million discords, to be perfectly honest, like it's like it's discords, and it's Twitter, and then it's like group chats. We have a big group of us in a Discord server called Oahu DAO. It's not all local Hawaii people, but it's through friends that we've kind of made along the way and brought in. And so those communities of people who are part of a ton of communities are great aggregators of information. And there'll be people in there, who are in, and this is like this for any alpha chat you're in. It's like there's usually people who are in Monkey DAO, there's people who are in Dragons, there's people in Mindfolk, there's people who are all in all these like, quote unquote, like goated, Discord servers who are pulling and extracting information from those. And everyone knows it. People in Monkey DAO know it. They know that as soon as they put out like an alpha call or something, or a project gets shared, it trickles down into all these other alpha DAOs. And so having people who are at least plugged into the sentiment in those communities is obviously helpful. So if you're in one of those, it can be helpful. And then just being in like a community that like you trust, and people are out there doing things, and just kind of being open and saying, hey, like, what are you guys minting today? And sometimes people are like, I haven't minted anything in 4 days. I'm not really like, you start to see people are like, if they get mint fatigue, they're not really interested, or I guess another thing would be like not minting on the same day as a hyped project. So some projects have had that where they're like, everyone's focused on like, I don't know, Tombstoned. I think the other week was a big one. And then, if you mint the same day, no one's looking at you. They've saved their capital. They're trying to go all in on Tombstone, and they're trying to make that flip work. So I'd say it's just being plugged in. And if you can't be plugged in, know people who are plugged in, because they will kind of be your eyes and ears for the community.
Okay. And then just last question, just what additional advice would you give to NFT creators out there that are just starting out?
Yeah, so I'd say creators in particular, I'm not really, I wouldn't consider myself a creator. I guess maybe on the community side, I try to help create. I try to help create relationships, create partnerships. So I guess you could kind of like, I could stretch that word to maybe apply to myself, but I would feel disingenuous calling myself a creator when there are some insane people out there building some awesome things. And I'm kind of just, I feel, fortunate enough to be able to be a part of those and to be considered valuable to some of those communities. But for creators that are coming in who have the skill sets and who have, whether it's art, or if you're trying to build a game, or, maybe it's you make music, or, whatever it is, I would find communities of people who are interested in those things. So like I shared a Discord with you called The Kitchen. It's kind of like an artist collective for people kind of who are artists venturing into the space, and kind of, there's a lot of shared experiences those people have when if you're trying to build a project, sell one-of-one art, or what have you. And so those people become a great resource for advice. And as those people get more entrenched in the communities, if you join this community and you provide value, you contribute, and you kind of kind of show that you're genuine and show authenticity, you'll be able to kind of leverage those connections you make, because chances are, if this person's been in there 4 months ahead of you, they probably have connections. They might be in alpha groups, they might be in discords already of projects that are a bit more plugged in, and they can, as you show your intent and show what you're really trying to do, they may say, hey, I noticed you're trying to start a project. I don't know how much you have by way of like mods, or maybe people to help you do community management. Like, I think I might know some people who can help with that, or at least to get you started. So those communities of kind of like-minded individuals, I think, can be great places to start. And then same thing for like music. Like, I know the guys over at Certified Citric. They seem to have like a like a pretty good network of music people in their field. Obviously, music is really big. I think Cynthia, if that's his name, if I'm saying his name right, he's starting kind of his own. He started his own music project, and I think he's kind of got his own group of friends. Like, there's these, you can see these kind of pockets of creativity and kind of like-minded people start to form. And it's not always one community; it could be a couple different communities that kind of come together and kind of cross-pollinate. But those are, I think, some of the most healthy places for creators to go. I wouldn't recommend, like, as a creator, trying to like ape into like SMB and expect to all of a sudden just get like elevated by their status. Right? Because they deal with that all the time. People who are quote unquote creators go in there, buy an SMB, come in and say, hey guys, like, let me show my project real quick. I bought an SMB, so it entitles me to this. And it's like, that's not really how it works, right? Like, people in this space see bullshit for what it is. And the only way to really develop social capital in the space is to spend time here and to stick around, because a lot of people come and go, and everyone in the space is watching. They're seeing the people that have been here, they're seeing the people that stick around. Sometimes it's unfortunate because it can be a bit of like there can be a bit of gatekeeping. Sometimes it kind of feels like that, but for the most part, I mean, there's a lot of really kind of good actors in the space who are just looking to make this space comfortable and create a sustainable place, because it's largely all of us are heavily invested in Solana, and so if it's not a good place to be, like, it's not going to work out long term, and we're all going to be kind of screwed, because we're just going to be dumping our own bags and destroying our the value we've created. So yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I had. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll have all of the NFT collections that your Saigo is part of linked down below if you guys want to check it out. And once again, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.